Alright, guys, this is a festival. This is another type of festival. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, cause we're going to 5 different festivals.
Old Man Dong at the Beach and Drunken Festival Creeper. Reading some of these other stories reminded me of this one. It all happened a couple years ago. It was a sweltering hot summer day, so my best friend and I went to the beach. We were both in our early 20s, wearing bikinis, but just sitting on our towels talking and minding our own business. After a little while of doing this, I was reading a book, and she was dozing in the sun when this older guy, maybe in his late 50s or early 60s, walked up and started trying to talk to us. Just small talk about the weather, the beach, whatever. We both just politely brushed him off. He then sets down his towel near us, not so near that we were suspicious. I didn't think anything of it at first. He started undressing. My friend was closer to him than me, and could see him out of the corner of her eye. Suddenly, she nudges me and says, "Holy shit, that guy is flashing us his dick." I sneak a glance, and sure enough, he is standing there, stretching per se, aka pelvic thrusting in our direction, wearing a black mesh Speedo through which his junk is clearly visible. He proceeded to lie face up and tan, while meanwhile a mother and her little kids play 20 feet away from him. My friend and I got up and moved down the beach. Another time, I was at a small music festival with the same friend, and a guy camping near us got fixated on her. He was already tanked when he showed up and immediately started hitting on her, trying to help us set up our tent, bragging about his time in the army and etc. He just would not leave us alone, and was getting more and more vulgar. So finally, I glared him down and asked him to please leave me and my girlfriend alone, as we just wanted to spend alone time together. We ended up making friends with some really nice guys when they came over to our campsite to get away from the same guy. They said he was complaining about the bitchy lesbians who wouldn't hang out with him. Creepy pedo at Warped Tour a few years back. Hi, I am on a throwaway account to preserve my identity. This is on the topic of a perverted musician who goes by the stage name Davey Vanity. My friend, let's call her Beth, and I went to Warped Tour a few summers ago. Warped Tour is basically a huge all-day festival full of pop-punk bands and Hot Topic rejects. I didn't want to go, seeing that most of the bands were shitty, and I wasn't feeling that good that year. I have a chronic, undiagnosed illness that fucks with my stomach, but Beth really wanted to go, went forth paying for my ticket, so I didn't have any choice. We ended up having to drag Beth's little sister Sky along. Sky insisted on seeing a band called Blood on the Dance Floor. This sceney electronic crap. Beth and I basically said to hell with that, and we'd return after the set. We went and saw another band, and halfway through, I began to feel ill. I had to go to the Warped medical tents and get water for myself because I was throwing up so badly. We went to get Sky to tell her we had to leave, but she whined about wanting to meet her idols. Seeing as Sky had Beth's purse and the car keys as well, we were essentially trapped. So we stood in this long line of rainbow hair and 12-year-old kids for an hour to get to the top of the line. Davey was rainbow-haired, covered in shitty face paint. He set off a creep alarm already, and I didn't even know the dude. Sky was flipping out and Davey began to hug her. "Ooh, you have some nice titties," he grumbled. Sky was 14. Beth stepped in and told immediately we had to go. Davey refused, and I was too tired to deal with it. "Come on, babes. You know you want my D," he continued. We were revolted, but Sky was in heaven. Somehow, we ended up on their shitty tour bus. Davy was feeling up Sky. Sky was starting to panic and said we had to leave. Davy grabbed her butt and Sky started crying. Beth pushed away the pervert and Sky ran out. Davy now approached me, who looked drunk from dehydration, and grabbed me. He literally grabbed my crotch and put his hand up my shirt and squeezed. I screamed and kicked him, running off the bus. We went home, but never told anyone about it. Still, I am revolted to this day, and I hear he has molested others. Disgusting. Edit. So, there was some confusion as to how we got on his bus. Sky basically dragged us there, being starstruck and all, I guess. I was too sick to argue, and Beth didn't want to make a big deal as she's very chill. We stayed in the doorframe 99% of the time. Yes, a female-fronted band called New Year's Day was kicked off the BOTDF for your standing up to bullying and sexual abuse from Davey. I am personally friends with Ashley, although we have a bit of an age difference. At the time of the assault, I was 18 years old. Beth was 17, turning 18 in 2 weeks, and of course, Sky was 14. After the Moon Festival. So, I live in Seattle, and if you've ever been to our ID for the Moon Festival things, they can get crowded and kinda crazy. Last year, I attended with a friend, and we hung around playing games and eating food until about 10:30 at night. My friend leaves to go home, deciding to walk back to Seattle U, where she attended and lived in the dorms. I warned her to call a cab because the streets surrounding the ID and parts of the ID itself can be pretty creepy at nighttime. My friend shrugs it off and leaves. Ironically, I was the one to have a creepy encounter. To get home, I would have to board the light rail. It didn't bother me that it was late because it was packed and buses also run along the same street. I checked the timetable for the next train and turn around to find a man standing directly behind me. He wasn't reading the board, which is big enough so that 2 or 3 people can stand side to side and read it, but instead staring at me, smiling. The man is heavy-set, as short as me, 5'3", with the dark curly hair and dark skin. He reeks of sweat, so I kinda stepped to the side with a quick sorry. I thought he wanted to read the board. I take 2 more steps, and the man says, Do you know how to get to? He has a thick Indian accent and is very soft-spoken, so I don't catch the location's name. I step closer again. Pardon? The man has a big smile. Do you know how to get to Bellevue? I'm supposed to meet my friend and I don't want to be late. I can still barely hear him and kinda have to lean in. Our bodies are almost touching and I feel kinda uncomfortable. I have issues with being touched due to past events, but that's an easy question. I quickly answer, give him the bus number and walk away. The bus to Bellevue comes and goes. I suddenly feel someone pressing up against my arm. I jump and look around. It is the quiet man. He smiles again. So, where are you going? I step away and prattle off the wrong location. He continues to stand there asking me questions, and I'm doing my best to give up stop talking to me signals without making a scene. I can't see any transit officers, and this guy just won't stop talking to me and keeps hovering very close to me. Finally, I say, I'm sorry, but I'm kind of in a rush. Do you mind? The light rail comes. I get on, but so does he. Not many other people do. He sits away from me, thankfully. I'm kinda panicking, and am thinking about just getting off at the next stop and waiting for the next one. But the next 2 stops are empty, and again, no transit officers in sight. Finally, I spot an officer and get out at that stop along with several other people. I walk towards the officer and glance back. The man has moved to stand by the doors, watching me, but he doesn't get out. The light rail moves on and I go home. The man wasn't threatening, just creepy, followed me, and clearly had no respect for personal space. Side note, I can't misunderstand his actions. The light rail does not go near Bellevue at all. So, in conclusion, creepy quiet man. Let's never meet again. Ever. Indian Festival Pedo. This is my first post, so please forgive my grammar. This is also somewhat long. Sorry. When I was a kid, my family belonged to the local Italian club. Every fall, we had a festa. My sister and I loved the festa. There was amazing food, bocce, and I shit you not, the Godfather theme playing on a loop from the loudspeakers. It was open to the public, and for the most part, it was attended by members. Everybody knew everybody, and someone usually had an eye on the kids, so my parents felt comfortable letting my sister and me wander off on our own. When my sister and I were about 5 years old, that sense of security almost had tragic consequences. We were playing with 2 other girls. One was our age, and the other was probably about 3 or 4 years old, when a man with an adorable puppy approached us. He wasn't a member of the club. We hadn't seen him before, but he looked normal enough. He was well dressed and clean shaven. Nothing about him said stranger danger. He let us play with his puppy and walk her around. He asked us where we lived, how old we were, where we went to school, etc. We answered his questions without thinking twice. We didn't give addresses though. We knew better than that. He just seemed so nice. At one point, he asked us where our parents were, and we told him they were around somewhere, but we hadn't seen them. Now, there was a vegetable garden on the property, but it was somewhat far away, and you had to walk down a wooded path to get to it. After he had charmed us, he announced that he was going to the vegetable garden with his puppy and asked us to come along. I have always been a suspicious person. Even as a kid, I knew how vulnerable I was, and when he asked us to come along, I experienced a sudden sinking feeling. I told him we had to ask our parents. He said that they would be okay with it because the vegetable garden wasn't that far away, and he was our friend. The youngest girl skipped over to him and took his hand, and they began to walk away. My sister wanted to go too. She took a step forward towards when I suddenly realized that something was very wrong. I grabbed her hand and yelled, "He's a stranger!" As soon as I said that, the other girl, who was our age, ran as fast as she could, grabbed the little girl's hand and said, "You can't go with him, he's a stranger." She pulled the little girl back to where we were. The formerly friendly man was suddenly very angry. His face turned bright red and he shook. Really, he fucking shook. I kid you not. Then suddenly, he wasn't angry anymore. He told us it was okay. He decided not to go to the vegetable garden anyways. He said he had to go to his car for something and asked us to keep an eye on his puppy. He handed me the leash and stalked off. By this time, I was completely alarmed and started looking around for my parents. Eventually, they found me, and when they asked about the dog, I told them what had happened. My dad is not the father of the year, but he is protective. Just don't fuck with his kids. He asked me where the man went, and then ran to the parking lot to try to catch the guy. but the pedo was already gone. I am 25 years old now, and to this day, that memory scares the hell out of me. I think that's why I remember it so vividly, even 20 years later. What if my sister had gone with him? What if that tiny girl had gone with him? Who knows? Creeped on by a couple at festival. I first have to apologize to all who are reading this. The story itself isn't especially scary, but it is quite creepy and almost a little bit absurd. I am a 37-year-old woman and consider myself to be pretty keen on detecting creepers. However, on this particular day, my creepometer appeared to be broken. Over the summer, I attended a weekend-long festival in my home state of Utah. This festival is an offshoot of the Burning Man Festival, so it is in the spirit of the Burning Man, but is on a much smaller scale. It's not as big. Many states throughout the USA hold their own regional Burning Man festivals. This was my first time going to one of these things. I went with my 3 brothers and a few of our group of friends. My creepy encounter took place on the second day of the festival. The last night, I hadn't slept very well due to the very loud music and all the noise. So, I said again, I wasn't used to going to these things. On the second day, I was quite tired. Our camp was situated near some speakers belonging to the camp next to ours. For hours on end and hours on end, they had been blaring some really obnoxious music, and I was not only tired at this point, but I was also getting quite cranky. It was summertime, so I was also a bit grumpy from the heat as well. It was mid-afternoon, and the sun was shining. The music was blasting, so I decided to go out for a little walk. I just wanted to escape the noise and the people and everything around me. I was so mad. So I took a trip to the porta potties. I was walking down a dirt road, heading for the Johns, when I spotted a girl and a guy walking arm in arm towards me. They made eye contact with me and approached me. There were tons of people milling about, and the vibe of the festival was very hippie-esque. So there was plenty of nudity, weed, people hula hooping and dancing. You get the idea, you get the picture. To have a stranger approach you and to start to chit-chat with you and want to hug you was not at all unexpected, to be honest. And they did just that. The girl was topless. This is an important detail in the story, and wearing a long skirt. The guy was wearing shorts. We start to talk and they want to hug me, so I said, sure, why not? Normally, I'm not a touchy-feely type of person, but I honestly felt that at that moment, they were harmless. Especially with the girl there, it just didn't seem like a big deal. Mistake number 1. After a bit of chatting, I excused myself and said I was heading to the restrooms, and I told them it was very nice to meet them. The guy then told me that they had an RV just down the way, and I was welcome to use their bathroom instead of having to use the public toilets. This sounded like a good idea to me at the time. Being tired and hot, getting out of the sun and away from the noise, and using a clean bathroom sounded great, so I accepted. Mistake number 2. I followed them to the RV. They showed me the bathroom. I did my business. When I came out, they started chatting with me again and offered me an Otter Pop. The guy pulled 3 popsicles out of the freezer and handed me one. They said I was welcome to stay and get out of the sun for a bit and chat, So I did. They began to ask me about myself, what I did for a living, and such. I told them I was studying illustration. This is when things started to get a little bit creepy. The guy asked me if I would like a foot rub. I declined, and my first red flag went up. I thought it was odd that this guy wanted to rub my feet right in front of his girlfriend. They then asked me about the studying arts and asked if I ever got to draw nudes. Red flag. I could instantly see where this conversation was headed. The whole tone turned very sexual within seconds. Next, they asked me if I ever got to pose naked for my class. What the fuck? As they're asking me these creepy questions, the guy takes his popsicle and starts to rub it on his girlfriend's chest and then starts to lick it off. I myself am incredibly uncomfortable at this point, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to end the conversation and get the hell out of their RV. While he is doing this, he is maintaining eye contact with me the entire time to see how I will respond. Then he asked me if I want to draw them nude. I certainly did not want to do that. I just shrugged and said I didn't have any paper, opened the door, and just got the hell out of there. Luckily, I was creeped on by a couple of people who were creepy but seemed pretty passive. When I told some girlfriends about it later, I had gone home. They pointed out that I was lucky that they hadn't been more aggressive, and that I was lucky that I hadn't walked into an RV filled with people who would have locked me in and just done whatever they wanted to do to me. So, just remember, stranger danger isn't just for kids. As an adult, I think it's really easy to get a false sense of security.